Hello, my name is Abhishek and I'm part of Team 1 for our project Ecom Master for the course Data Focused Python. And this video will basically just walk through the code, how it works, and how we did it. And let's just jump right into it. So we here have the main piece of the code. We'll come back to the code later, but let's just see how it works. So the moment we run the code, we see two prompts which say process latest source data files. And after that, there's a certain, like a few seconds lag, and then we see latest source data files process for further use. So the reason we do this before even going to the menu is because we want to ensure we pick up the latest data that we have. We just overwrite the data and the program will take care of the rest. And now we've done the ETL, which is necessary between the two steps. So processing was picking up the latest file, and then once the ETL was done, we see that data source data files have been processed for further use. So we've done all the merging, combining data that we needed to, and we are ready for the analysis. So let's go to step one, which is basically scraping of live data. So here we can search a particular product category. So our options are to search through eBay or Alibaba, and we can continuously keep expanding this list if we need to. So going to eBay, which is one, we enter the computer category. So in this case, we'll be taking the example of computer keyboard. And what it's doing in the background is scraping live data. And again, this makes sense to scrape every single time we run the code because we don't want old data. We want data as of this particular moment. So it is going to eBay and fetching the first 5 results based off of popularity, getting all the price information and everything to help the user with efficient pricing and just make decision as to where the product can be efficiently priced. This will ensure the maximum profit margin, for example, and let's just wait for the data to come up. The expected lag here is somewhere between 10 to 30 seconds, and I think 35 seconds is about to go up now. So what we have here is 317 records, sorry. The maximum price was $80, the minimum was $299, and the average price is 1864. We also see a histogram. The histogram is price in dollars versus frequency, and we have buckets of $10. So what we see here is a bucket of $10 to $20 has the most products. So this is where most of the products lie, and this is where the users can make call as to what to price their products accordingly. So let's just go back to the menu. We again have the options to look at other things. So let's look at option 2 this time, which is visualize demographics. So the data here is from data.government.in. So it is reliable data, and let's see what it says. So the first chart says top 9 states versus total US population. So it is tautological logic as to if we have a state which is highly populous, we can expect higher demand from that state. So the total US population being 320 million, we see California has the biggest chunk of it, which is close to 70 million. So again, a lot of orders can come from California. We have other factors which play into the e-commerce market. So poverty is one of them. So what we have here is bottom 10 states by poverty. So the least poverty in these states. So these states have the least poverty. So a percentage here is somewhere, let's say Texas, for example, is 40, and LA, for example, is close to 50. So again, these are state codes which are used frequently, and that's what we are showing. Top 10 states where education is next. So here we have percentage population that have at least a bachelor's degree, and Texas again is close to 30%. The next chart that we have here is bottom 9 states versus US versus total US by unemployment. So this is percentage of unemployed population, basically adults who are not employed. So we see states that are above the US average. So US, for example, is close to 0.01 percentage, and that's how these are all the features that can come into a particular regions and affect its demand. Moving on to the next one, we have weather information. So again, just like scraping, this is an API call, and we use the same state code. So let's take Alabama, for example. So here we get the prompt which says it is fetching latest information from API. So what we do is we basically ping the API using an app ID that we have, and this ID is useful to make calls, basically authorizing the call, and we get the response in form of JSON, and that JSON is, let's say, parsed, and the final output looks something like this. So we have all the counties, Cherokee being one of them. So we have the maximum temperature, the minimum temperature, and it's easy to add factors like humidity, precipitation. If those factors are, so we already have the information. If the factors are somewhat responsible for delays or maybe overheads in terms of shipping or supply chain, it's easy to add them here. So we see the Fahrenheit, the temperature in Fahrenheit here against all the counties. And let's go back to the rest of the program. So we've done with 1, 2, and 3, and we're left with Alibaba. So let's go back to 1, and in this case we are choosing Alibaba, which is 2. Now for eBay we use Beautiful Soup, but for Alibaba we are using Scrapy. So what we need to do is follow these instructions here. So first it says go and run this particular file, which is execute scrapy.py inside this particular folder. So let's go back to code, press Ctrl O. We go to this folder called scrape_alibaba, and then we go to spiders, and then we see this file here. Now we run this file, and we see we get a product search here similar to eBay. So let's just search for computer keyboards again. Now again, this is scraping live data, and there'll be a few exceptions. So traceback exception, for example. So there are certain restrictions on e-commerce websites. So the exception is thrown because of the security measures. So what we've done is we've scraped the data, stored it in the format that we can use, and the traceback can be ignored in this case. So we can go back to the instruction, and it says then run alibaba.py under this particular folder. So we come back here, Control O again. We go to scrape_alibaba, and then we have this file called alibaba.py. Now let's just run this again. So here the data that is scraped off of the previous script is displayed. What we have is 62 records. The maximum price in yuans, Chinese yuans, was 824. The minimum was 0.01, and the average price is 158. We have a similar histogram in this case. The bucket size varies here because of the currency values. And what we have here as an added step is a rating. So we have 13 records where we could successfully scrape off of the rating of the product. So on a scale of 0 to 1, the maximum rating a product got was 0.96, and the minimum was 0.79. We also have an average rating. So again, we can see what is the perception of the consumers who buy these products. And we have a similar histogram for these products. So what we have is the rating and the number of products. Now we are done with all the modules that we had, and again, if you want to start the analysis, we can just run the file again. So let's just go to the main file again. So what we've done here is the usual import statements, and then we've modularized the code in terms of procedures or methods. So what we have is process CSV first, and this is the first prompt that we see. So we read the files that we need, and this procedure is the first thing that is called. So read the files and then merge them on the basis of FIPS code, and then the type of join that we're using here is left. Then there are certain columns that we don't need, certain garbage values, and then again percentage makes sense to count on the fly, so we can't really store percentage values. So things like this we don't need. And then we have escape characters, which is easier to run the analysis, so we just rename these these columns. And then what we do is finally write combine all the files and then write them into one CSV file, which is called process data. And after this successful, we see the prompt which says latest source data. Now visualize data, all of the other steps are based off of the data that we read here. So we read the columns that we need and then we plot them. So, plot.show, something that a lot of this is actually most of it is from what we've learned in our classes. So bachelor's degree, this is for education. Similarly, we have data for unemployment. Weather file here is again looping through, basically printing a message and then looping through the weather app that we had, pinging the API. And finally showing the plot that you could see. We also have the output in CSV, and similar for eBay. And we see the final loop here, which basically just loops through the conditions that we had until someone says Q for quit. And that is the end of our program. We have scrapey scripts here, not a lot going on here, but for Alibaba, the code is very similar to eBay. And we see the histogram here, which is being plotted. We see the frequency, the rating, and we see the price and again the frequency, and finally I think that's about it. Thank you.